to open a meeting. Do the Pledge of Allegiance followed by a moment of silence. Who gets to do it? Tom, you want to do it?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Anybody, hearing of citizens, anybody here to speak for 3 minutes? Don't see any. Start with the bond issues. Mr. Polito.
So we have Mr. Mike Zabasic from PNC Capital Markets here tonight, and he's going to review a couple different options on the bond issue that we're recommending and give you a little bit of information on the swaps.
Thank you, Brian. I don't want to around Amos. Where's my old pointer at?
We're in process, I believe.
Okay.
This is the PowerPoint. We're in process.
We're trying to get it.
Sorry. This is my fault because I just sent it to him about a minute ago, so.
Mike, if we get,
okay.
go up front there, but
Okay.
it's a little bit easier for everybody to see and stuff.
Do you have it yet? We're still waiting for the document, I guess, to download or something.
It's not, it didn't come?
Angela said she didn't receive it yet.
Yeah, who's there? Wi-Fi.
Sure.
I had hard copies as a backup. That happened to me one time. I just had PowerPoint set up and it didn't work and I was doing a song and dance with nothing to hand out.
We have it in your email.
Yeah, it should be in.
We just sent it again.
Send it to Ian.
I understand.
Fine. Bring the laptop over.
Like a long elevator ride.
Do we want to jump to the next item in the meantime?
You want to do it on,
You want to do it on paper? We've got the paper.
Okay,
Mike,
let's do
can
it on
you
paper.
make a copy?
I think I have 12.
That should be good.
That should be sufficient.
Yep.
Yeah.
Get it from them by the time the papers get printed out.
Yeah.
Don, I did just.
I got it. Thank you.
I got it.
What I tell you. It's good for reference, though.
Thank you.
Good evening. We have been working here over the last several weeks with your administration and your legal team, continue behind the scenes to put the paperwork together and the information. for the proposed bond issue. So as Brian said, we'll give you an update here tonight on 3 potential scenarios for you to select the one you think is most appropriate for the school district's budgetary situation. Yeah. This is just a graphic depiction of the school district's existing outstanding debt service on bonds. It's about 8.6 million. This is net after state reimbursement you receive. So this is what is the local portion of your debt service. About 8.6 bumps up to about 9.5 in later years. The next page, page 2, just kind of lays that out for you numerically. The one thing I wanted to point out to you, the district is in a very advantageous position from the standpoint of you basically have all your debt paid off within 15 years, which is a good thing when you're looking to borrow new money, because the 50 million that you're contemplating, we essentially can have all that retired in this period of time here, because you're dropping off from almost, what is 8.6 right now to 9.5. And so all that capacity is already in your budget. When you get all those bonds paid off, you can move that to a new issue. So to have, 50 million amortized over a 20-year period is unique. Because a lot of times you might have, a lot of districts may have 25, 30-year repayment schedules. So where do you put the new money you want to borrow? It gets pretty expensive. Okay, so please, yep, page 3. So we have the 3 structures here. I'll just show you we'll focus on the left because the next page is the graphic depictions, a lot of colors there. The next page will give it to you in numeric fashion. Structure A, we'll call, is funding 50 million in capital projects. It is terminating the interest rate swap, and it is committing to not having an impact of more than 3 million in your budget. And you also have, the interest rate swap is the one that's tied to your bonds. If you're paying floating rate, you have floating rate bonds out there right now. There's also another swap, outstanding basis swap, which is not being terminated under this scenario. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I had another one that's, if you look in your hard copy, I'm going to get on this PowerPoint after talking to Brian yesterday. Important to note, by refinancing your 2009 bond issue, which again is in your hard copy, matching up with the PowerPoint, we're also refunding the 2009 bonds and terminating the swap. The combination of those two, the net, what we call present value savings, is about 380,000. So in refinancing these and getting out of them, there's a benefit to the school district. And that's simply because the interest rates you're paying on the existing bonds are higher than what the current market is. And the rate you're paying to the counterparty, the swap, the fixed payment you've been making, is 4.11%. Then there are also costs associated with that, the letter of credit fee being the biggest one. Those costs come almost about $500,000 a year on top of that 411. So you're exchanging that for bonds in the 3.5% range now. So that's really helps the whole process. B is the 50 million is constant in every 3 structures. Refunding the 2009 bonds is a constant. It's in all 3 structures. The 3 million budget impact is in all 3. We keep to that target. We know we can't vary from that commitment. This one now terminates the other basis swap. That cost of terminating that basis swap is $700,000. So we had to borrow $700,000 in this scenario to pay that on. The third scenario says, what if we just borrow the 50 million, make sure it doesn't go over 3 million, refund those 2009 bonds and keep our swaps outstanding, not get rid of either one of them. So those are the 3. Bonds, no swaps terminated. Bonds, 1 big swap terminated. Third one, both swaps terminated. I should point out the second swap. It's an exchange of payments set up in 2009. District pays a tax-exempt rate. They receive a taxable rate. The cost of that per month right now is $2,100 to the district. obviously you don't want to pay 2,100, but it's not a backbreaker as the other 37 million in floating rate bonds in that swap. But based on where the market is, because this swap goes out for another 15 years, it would cost you $700,000 today to get out. Page 4. So then this lines it up for you under each scenario. You know, again, you're going to be at 11.8 regardless. 8.8 roughly you're paying now, another 3 million, which covers the 50 million. Of course, the 3 is part of the allocation of the increased state funding that we're allocating to pay the new money debt service. And the difference between this one and this one is we're only getting rid of one swap here, we're getting rid of 2 here, so it costs, there's your, you know, roughly your 700,000 or so. We just basically have to borrow more and pay it back here at the end. And then the third one with no swaps, pretty negligible difference between that and either one really, especially in taking time value of money into account. So again, you have an opportune time to get out of that swap and not have it cost the district money.
So we have, really, as Mike said, we have 2 swaps. The interest rate swap is, I guess, what we've been terming the bad swap, the one that is very costly to get out of, that the rating companies look very unfavorably upon, and the one that we are definitely recommending to get out. And when we get out of that, Mike shared the $380,000, $160,000 of that is for that swap. So really, by getting out of that, the present value benefit is $160,000. So it's not costing us any money, or as taxpayers any money, to get out of that swap. It actually benefits us at this point, and in the long term, it also reduces our risk. The other swap, the basis swap, and I did have a very lengthy conversation with our independent swap advisor who is part of these transactions. He kind of termed that as a lower risk or a low risk vanilla swap, if you could, I guess, call a swap anything generic. But he indicated because there's not much risk and it would cost us $700,000 to get out, that he wouldn't recommend that we terminate that at this time. If circumstances change, we can always revisit it at a later date, but he said we wouldn't be penalized by the rating agencies by not terminating that swap, and they wouldn't give us any additional favorable benefit because of terminating it. So given that, and if you take a look at the $2,100 a month over 10 years, we're going to spend $250,000 over that time period on that swap, or we can spend $700,000 now to get out of it. It just doesn't make sense financially for us to do that at this point. So that we're not recommending that the board terminate that swap at this time.
And the big risk and why the rating agency places so much emphasis on is that has you're going from having floating rate bonds outstanding in the market, which are subject to changes in the rates in the market. Could be good, could be bad, to fixed rate bonds. And so once you sell those bonds, that rate is locked in, and then the investor is worried about, I'm holding a bond paying me 3%, what's the market doing? But the school district doesn't have that risk anymore. So that's the benefit to the big one, getting rid of those floating rate bonds. And really the next 3 pages are just an individual, showing the individual scenarios one by one. And I think we've covered what's relevant and important to each one of those. I think the thing on this page, again, it's showing you the 3 million, the 8 to 11, and then it stays steady. So it bumps up next year, and then that covers you. That levy is in place, or in this case, the state allocation is in place to cover that throughout the duration. And again, you're out of all debt in like 2035. Which, so down the road, if the district needs to borrow more monies, you again have that capacity where there's money in the budget that will eventually not be needed for those bonds because they're paid off and can be reallocated to new monies. And through this process, we're actually even shortening up that 2009. We're able to, you had those going out here, so we got rid of that, shortened it up for you. So all the pieces have come together very nicely with the current market and obviously, state funding helps. Our next big step is next Tuesday. We're having the rating calls with the rating agencies with their list of questions for Brian and staff. So get a good night's sleep, Brian, ready to go. And then they'll have the rating to us about 10 days, 12 days later. We are, if the board wishes, in bond counsel, Tim's office and the solicitor and bond counsel, there'll be a resolution brought forth to you on the 27th, March 27th. That is just a authorization resolution, if you will, of kind of setting the overall parameters, not to exceed. That's not, bonds aren't being issued that day or that night. You're not locking anything in. It's just giving the go-ahead officially for us to enter the market, which we anticipate right now to be April 9th. So April 9th is when the bonds would be sold. So altogether, it's 85, 90 million, refunding the 35 of the variable rate bonds, the 50. And then typically takes about 25 to 30 days. Your legal staff has to file this paperwork with the Department of Community Development. So in May, early May, you'll have your floating rate bonds paid off and you'll have 50 million. Happy to answer
Any questions?
The only question I do have is when you're talking about the two different swaps, and the problem with the one swap and the other swap, is the other swap that we're considering not dealing with at this time, does that have the capability or to turn into that same kind of problem that we have now with this one, or is it because it's a different kind of a loan completely? I mean, a different kind of
Yeah,
a setup?
Mike, you may be able to answer this better than I do, but the risk is lower because it's exchanging two different interest rates. One is a LIBOR and one is another.
So it's how the switch is
Right.
structured.
And then what they're saying is that the risk that could change drastically is very low, and if it does, we'll know well in advance, so we'll be able to take action at that point.
Any other questions? If not, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it the one, so we'll go ahead with just the one swap then?
Is everybody okay with the option A, one, just
Is that the one?
eliminating the one swap?
Only reason I ask is a rating agency will ask.
Okay,
It was the 191.
yes.
Robbie?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Bobby?
I'd like to study it just a little bit longer before we make a decision, or if I vote yes or no on it.
Okay.
So call it an abstention if you want, whatever you want. But I'd like to look at the numbers just a little bit closer.
All righty. We'll revisit it, I guess, towards the end. How much, what do you want?
We're looking
What
at
do I
the
want to do?
No, I'm
resolution
saying,
on
how
March
long do you want?
27th, right?
You want to take it home, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
We meet next week. Would next week be good?
Well, all right, Brian, if you're recommending A, I assume.
Yes.
Well, all right.
No, we don't, there's no pressure here, we just,
Mr. President.
Well,
Yeah.
except
We-
we have to know
We
ASAP.
we aren't going to ask the board to do a formal vote until March 27th on this, but if I get a general consensus that this is the direction we'll be in, that's what I will share that with the rating agencies next Tuesday. But you still have up until March 27th to make a different decision.
yeah, this is just, this ain't official, it's just the
Right,
same.
yeah, it's not.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. We'll just present to the rating agency. The board is still has it under consideration, but at this point in time, what we're presenting to you is the one swap, the other one not. And then, we come on the 27th and more questions and
That should
And
give you
even if
plenty,
for some
right?
reason the resolution didn't want to be acted on that night, again, no bonds have been sold that day, so it doesn't hurt anything. So that's the benefit of having another meeting.
Okay. We'll go with that. Facilities plan update, Mr. Polito.
Yes, we had, today we had the pre-bid meetings for the projects that we're going to be doing this summer. It was the Lincoln Edison, Lincoln Edison and Erie High emergency generators, the Harding roof replacement and Wilson roof replacement, as well as hot water boilers at Erie High. And from what I've been told from the architects, the turnout was very good, so I think we're going to have a great pool of candidates to consider as part of this. You have a timeline at your desk. We are intending to have the bid openings for the Wilson roof on March 14th and the other bids on March 18th. We had talked to the board previously about having a special meeting on March 27th to award the contracts, and at that time too, we would then bring you the resolution on the bond issue. One question I do have with the board is if you would like to have a special meeting on the 20th for the architects to come up and go over the results of the bids and the recommendations, or if you would like us to do that through, send an email out on that.
I don't know, what's everybody think?
I won't be able to attend the 20th, but don't hold it on me. I have to be out of town.
Well, I think if you send it out an email, it gives us time to look it over, and if there's questions or anything. Is everybody okay with an email?
I agree.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Is everything on there, right?
Yes.
Okay, hot topic.
So I have two items to discuss tonight on the turf replacement. First one is the layout of the turf. I received some information today that there was some, or yesterday, that there were some concerns about the potential layout of the turf, which included a Royals end zones and a Royals emblem on the field. I have this in front of you tonight. I talked to Mr. Fabrizi this morning regarding the Stadium Commission and their involvement, and I also talked to the administration at Erie High, and what I've gathered is that there's been not very much input into that from either of those groups. And given the concerns that have been raised over the last couple of days, I would like to recommend that we put a committee together that consists of representation from the school board, the administration at Erie High, and the Stadium Commission to not only take a look at the design of the field, but also weigh in on what type of turf we have. The architects indicated that they could bring up several samples and give the committee some different options as far as what type of turf that we would be able to spec as we move forward with the bid process. They did indicate too, because we would like to get this moving as soon as possible, but that would not hold up the bid process, that we could put the specs in with a more generic type emblem on the center, and then once we have a decision on what that looks like, we can make an addendum to the bid packet.
Okay.
All I'm gonna speak about a little bit is that what the problem was, or what is being talked about a little bit, is that there was an emblem that's on the field at this point when we first put in the turf. And the Stadium Commission, I mean, we've never had any input at all about what was gonna be put there. That was never brought to, like Mr. Polito said, was never brought to the Stadium Commission for any kind of input at all. And so, what is on there now is an emblem that was designed by students at the time, and the one thing that I did remember, and I've told Mr. Polito, is that the Nancy Eisman was the chairman. She just resigned from the Stadium Commission, and when she kind of gave an exit speech, she took great pride in being a part of putting that logo together and bringing students involvement and such. So I just thought it was something that, or, you know, and I think a few people have contacted, that it was something to consider, that taking that out of the stadium, I realized that nobody felt that it was like dissing the veterans, but with no community input, we weren't really sure whether or not that would be taken as such. So I just thought it would be something that would be a good idea, and Mr. Polito agreed that we kind of look at it and see if we want to come up with some kind of a compromise or some kind of a situation where we could decide, you know, that outcome. Because I personally do understand the feelings of the people that, I understand both sides. I understand that the idea was to, when we consolidated the school, to bring school spirit and give the kids something to be proud of. And then on the other side, I know that the veteran stadium was built in honor of our people who have given service to this country. And so and if you look at the logo, I mean, it is representative of that I do believe that when our kids go out and play football, it's not bad for them to understand that the powers that be respect people who have put themselves forward.
Yes, Tom?
I don't know about any of the drama. I try to stay away from all this. I do know that yesterday I got a call from two people that are in the World War I committee. And the Veterans Stadium was actually named after World War I, not like veterans as a whole. That's like the monument, if you will, for it. They didn't even suggest that was an issue.
Oh.
They just both wanted some space over what will be eventually Veterans Park to put a World War I plaque. Originally that was supposed to, as I understand, it was supposed to go up on the wall, but it really was too heavy. There's some logistic issues of why they couldn't do that. They just wanted some space. I know they spoke with Randy, I'm not quite sure who Randy is, and they said, well, they're not sure what's going on with all that. They just wanted to be assured that they could have this monument in the space prior to the May 26th ceremony marking the 100-year anniversary. And I don't, from my opinion, and I'll go back with them, but these are the people that are really in charge of that group, the World War I guys. This didn't even blip on their radar. You know, John Williams and Mary Jane Koenig. I'm sure you might know. Some of you, other guys been in the district longer than may know Mary Jane. So I didn't feel that was an issue at all.
I didn't.
There might be somebody that always has somebody with an issue
The
with something.
came about because
Yeah.
it went to the, you know, I didn't have anything to do with raising.
I like this. I mean, I'm not in the committee or anything like this.
Well,
It's simple. I don't know.
yeah, I think let's put the committee together, and I think there can be a simple compromise. I mean, everybody's pretty fair about it, so.
President,
Yes,
I volunteer to be on the committee.
okay.
How many people are going to the board on that committee?
Doesn't matter. You want to be on it too?
Sure.
All right. And you're going to be on it from the,
Stadium Commission.
Well, I'm not on the stadium commission. I'm a liaison. I mean, I'm not a voting member of the stadium commission. I thought maybe if we were putting together a committee from here and then present our, you know, our thoughts and get input from the stadium commission, but
well, I think it's better to have everybody involved in the whole process rather than do that, because then they could think it's one-sided or something. So if we can get a couple people contact a couple people, see who wants to sit on a committee.
I'm sure we can do that, right, Angela? We can send out a letter to the stadium commission and ask who we need 2 volunteers or whatever, and then make a decision. We can do that. We'll have the president make the decision. Could you please contact the president, ask him to put out a letter and ask for 2 volunteers?
Who else do you need?
Thank you.
I'll appoint some people from the Erie High administration to participate as well. And Mr.
Maybe
Pisano
reach out
and
to a couple,
Probably Jeremy.
yeah, maybe
John.
someone with the veterans maybe too.
Okay.
I mean, that would only make sense.
I also would,
Sure,
like,
I'll get
Darlene
over
would be
Thank
interested
you.
in being involved also. I know that. She's not here, but,
Well, we already got 2 on, so.
and that 2 is me and,
Well,
Am
let's
I-
go 3 then.
oh, who's the 2?
It was Bobby and Tom.
I don't need to be on it. I don't care if you need me to be on it. That's cool too.
Whatever, I'm just saying that I know that Darlene had an interest, so if, I would defer to Darlene. If you could put Darlene on with Bobby, then that'd be fine.
Well, just tell me you want to be on it, not a problem. You know, if Darlene has the interest in it, I'll back out. I was just going,
It don't matter.
You lose members.
Losing them quick.
I'll be on.
Losing them quick.
I'll withdraw my volunteer.
Well, yes, George.
I don't object to the process suggested, and I'll be reasonable, but I feel strongly it should not be changed from a dedicated facility to the World War I veterans. It was built and then dedicated right after World War I to those people, and the veterans came on strong in the late 70s with a lot of emphasis on, I mean, up until 1976 it was called colloquially Academy Stadium or Gus Stadium, and it became re-emerged as the Veterans Stadium in the late 70s. I don't want to pull too much in the past, but it's used for more than high school sports, and so I just I won't object to the committee. I just don't expect to be ever in favor of this, but I'll listen. I don't want to be unreasonable. Just want to go on record, or just want it known that I feel strongly
Yeah.
believe in the
This isn't
veterans.
about, just so you know, it's not about renaming the stadium.
I know, but the turf,
I kind
I
of,
like.
in my opinion, I kind of look at it like all the, if you look at a football stadium, and you got First Energy, but it's this team stadium. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
every stadium's named by something. That's why I think there's an easy compromise.
Yeah, but I'm fine with what's there now, is what I'm saying, so. Just so that's not, so let the process go.
Angela, if you can touch base with Darlene and see if she wants to be on, and if not, Bobby, then we'll bring you back. Okay?
That's fine.
Another item on the turf.
Okay?
One of the things that we're seeing with our responsible contractor policy is that from time to time, we're going to be working with projects in industries that don't typically have certified apprenticeship programs, and the turf installation is one of those times. We did reach out to, we had our architects reach out to several turf vendors as we're working through preparing these specifications. There's actually 4 of them that are on the state list. They talked to 2 of them. Both of those individuals indicated that, both of those companies, that they have certified installers that they use on these type of projects. They have training programs in place for those installers, but they are not a certified apprenticeship program that would qualify under our policy. And both of those entities indicated that if we put the bid specs out like this, that they would not bid on the project because they would not want uncertified installers installing the turf on the field, and that would void the warranty. So at this point, we would like the board to entertain the idea on this project to waive the responsible contractor requirement for the apprenticeship program so that we can get some bids on it.
Anybody want to speak?
I would say, just, you know,
I'm interested to hear you.
I would say in this situation that I understand that there are certain projects that we may be involved with that do not, that fall under the category of what you're speaking of, and to come to the board and present that in that way, and for us to make that decision, I have no problem with that, and so I would say we move forward to waive that for that project. That's my position.
Ange, you okay with them moving forward?
Yeah.
Tom?
Oh, no, we need to go union. We're as good at that. Pro-union.
There's no reason to be sarcastic, Tom.
I'm good.
John's good, Bobby?
Yeah.
Okay, you're okay with that,
Thank you.
all right? Move on to the organizational chart.
At your desk tonight, we have our revised organization chart. And we made these changes after some of the administrative changes that were made over the last couple months. And we decided to take a different format with this. There's fewer boxes on here. In the past, this organization chart included people, departments, and tasks. We decided to simplify it and just limit it to people and departments, so that it's easier to understand who reports to who, which is the whole purpose of the organization chart. But B has put together a very nice, on the second page, summary of each of these individuals and what their responsibilities are and their contact information. So we thought that this might be a better format to put forth to the board to have them approve.
Any questions, comments? I personally like this format. Thanks for helping out a little bit.
I like you so much, so you help out. Absolutely, this is well done, as opposed to what we've seen in the past and how things are. Yes, absolutely.
Who handles AR and AP? Is that falling under the executive director?
AR, it's under the controller in the finance box, finance and purchasing.
Okay.
Any other questions about this? Comments, anything? Okay. We'll move on to the 1920 calendar. Mrs. McCullough.
The 1920 calendar is on the agenda. Is on the agenda for next week. I'm not sure if you had a chance to review it, but there's just a few things I want to bring to your attention. First day of school will be September 3rd.
Hey, excuse me.
I just had a question about the chart, I'm sorry. My just question was, did Mr. Orlando start this position already?
He has not started the position. He's been working mostly at Wilson Middle School now, while we work through with his replacement through that process.
Well, I saw the posting in the packet, and then when I saw his name on here, I thought maybe he started already. But he's still at Wilson?
Yes.
Okay, that's all.
So the first day of school is September 3rd. Last day of school ends up being June 11th. And there is one more major change we made. We took the early dismissals out of the calendar, so we could, instead of having small chunks of time to work on the strategic plan, we were able to consolidate those times and make full days during the school year. So you'll see that change. Any questions about the calendar?
So there's no early dismissal?
There are no early dismissals.
Oh, you don't know this.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anything on new business? We are gonna need a executive session for personnel matters. Or any other matter anybody has, anything? If not, we'll recess for 10 minutes and pick back up in room 3. Thank you.